You think because you bought a first-class ticket you own this terminal? You people are all the same." That was the last thing Officer Greg Miller said before he made the biggest mistake of his career. He thought Dr. Jenna Sterling was just another passenger he could bully, a woman traveling alone in a hoodie, an easy target for his power trip. He didn't know that the phone in her hand wasn't recording a TikTok. It was a direct line to the Federal Aviation Administration. He didn't just ruin his day, he was about to shut down the entire airport. Watch until the end to see the most satisfying instant karma in aviation history. The automatic doors of JFK Terminal 4 slid open, blasting Dr. Jenna Sterling with a gust of recycled air and the chaotic symphony of holiday travel. It was 6 a.m. on a Tuesday, usually a lull period, but today the departures hall was a zoo. Jenna adjusted the strap of her vintage leather duffel bag. She didn't look like a woman who held a PhD in aviation security logistics, or someone who sat on the board of 3 major defense contracting firms. Today, she looked like a tired mum or a student. She wore an oversized grey hoodie from her alma mater, MIT, faded yoga pants, and a pair of worn-out sneakers. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore zero makeup. She preferred it this way. When you travel under the radar, you see how systems actually work. You see the cracks. "Excuse me," she murmured, weaving through a wall of tourists, blocking the sky priority lane. She approached the Delta One check-in desk. The agent, a kind woman named Sarah, glanced at Jenna's passport, and then her eyes widened slightly as she looked at the screen. The screen flashed a specific code, CL7, Clear Level 7. It was a status usually reserved for diplomats or high-ranking government officials. "Dr. Sterling," Sarah said, her voice dropping to a respectful whisper. "It's an honor. We have you in seat 1A on flight 402 to London Heathrow. No checked bags?" "Just the carry-on, Sarah." "Thank you," Jenna smiled warmly. "And please treat me like everyone else. I'm just trying to get home." Sarah nodded, understanding the code. Of course, the TSA checkpoint at Lane 5 is usually the fastest this morning, though the shift supervisor there is diligent. "Diligent is good," Jenna said. "Diligent keeps planes safe." If only she knew. Jenna took her boarding pass and headed towards the security checkpoint. She pulled out her phone, a secure military-grade device encased in a deceptive, sparkly pink case, and sent a quick text to her husband, David. "Checking in now. See you for dinner." As she entered the winding maze of the security line, the atmosphere shifted. The air felt tense. Up ahead, a TSA officer was barking orders with unnecessary aggression. He was a tall, stocky man with a buzz cut and a name tag that read, G. Miller. "Laptops out, shoes off, belts off. If you beep, you go to the back of the line," Miller shouted, his face red. He wasn't just doing his job. He was enjoying the fear he was creating. Jenna observed him. In her head, she was already drafting a report. Officer exhibits signs of aggression, creating bottleneck anxiety, inefficient workflow. She reached the conveyor belt. She grabbed 2 grey bins. In one, she placed her shoes and her jacket. In the other, she placed her laptop and her leather duffel bag. "Hey, you!" Miller's voice boomed. Jenna looked up. He was pointing a gloved finger directly at her face. "Me?" she asked calmly. "Yeah, you, the hoodie. Take it off. I have a t-shirt underneath, but I'd prefer to keep the hoodie on if possible." "It's freezing in here," Jenna said politely. "I didn't ask for a weather report. I said take it off." "And that bag," he sneered, looking at her distressed leather duffel. "That looks oversized. Does that even fit in the sizer?" "It fits perfectly, officer. It's a compliant carry-on." Miller stepped out from behind the podium. He walked up to her, invading her personal space. He loomed over her, using his height to intimidate. The crowd behind them went silent. "I decide what fits," Miller spat. "You look suspicious, sweating, nervous. You trying to hide something under that hoodie?" Jenna wasn't sweating. She was perfectly calm, but she knew this look. She had seen it 100 times in her career, usually in training videos on what not to do. This was bias, pure and simple. A black woman in casual clothes, traveling alone, speaking articulately. It irritated him. "I am not nervous, Officer Miller," she said, reading his name tag deliberately. "I am simply traveling. Please, let me proceed." Miller's eyes narrowed. He grabbed her bin, the one containing her laptop, and the leather bag, and shoved it violently aside, nearly knocking it off the table. "Secondary screening," he shouted. "Pull her out, we've got a live one." The murmur of the crowd grew louder. A few people pulled out their phones. "Is that necessary?" a businessman in a suit behind Jenna asked. "She didn't do anything." "Back up, sir, or you're next," Miller barked, turning his aggression on the bystander. The businessman raised his hands and stepped back. Jenna was steered into a glass-walled holding area by a younger, hesitant officer named Officer Davis. Davis looked apologetic. "Ma'am, I'm sorry," Davis whispered as he directed her to stand on the footprints. "Greg is having a bad morning. Just do what he says, and it'll be over fast." "It's okay, Officer Davis," Jenna said, her voice steely. "I'm not worried." Miller marched over, snapping on a fresh pair of blue latex gloves. The sound was sharp, like a whip crack. He grabbed Jenna's leather bag. "This is a nice bag," Miller said sarcastically, running his hand over the distressed leather. "Oh, where'd you get it? Swap meet? Or did you lift it from someone in the lounge?" "That bag is a custom Tanner Crowler," Jenna said evenly. "It was a gift from the British ambassador." Miller laughed, a loud, barking sound that echoed through the terminal. "The British ambassador, right, and I'm the King of England. Listen, lady, don't lie to me. It makes things worse." He unzipped the bag. He didn't search it, he desecrated it. He grabbed handfuls of her neatly folded clothes and tossed them onto the metal table. Her underwear, her toiletries, her books, everything was dumped out for the public to see. "What are we looking for, Greg?" Officer Davis asked nervously. "The scanner was clear." "She's a mule, Davis. Look at her," Miller muttered, loud enough for Jenna to hear. "She fits the profile. High-end bag, trashy clothes, attitude. She's carrying cash or drugs." Jenna stood perfectly still. Her heart rate hadn't spiked. She was watching a train wreck, and she was the inspector. "Officer Miller," Jenna said, her voice cutting through the noise, "I am going to give you one chance to stop this. Repack my bag, apologize, and let me board my flight. If you continue, you are violating Section 4 of the Passenger Bill of Rights and 3 separate FAA conduct codes." Miller froze. He turned to look at her slowly. The mention of specific codes seemed to annoy him rather than warn him. "You're a lawyer?" he sneered. "I hate lawyers. No, I'm not a lawyer." Miller grabbed a small velvet pouch from the bottom of her bag. "Don't open that," Jenna warned. Her voice dropped an octave. It wasn't a request, it was a command. "Jackpot," Miller grinned. "What's in here? Diamonds? Coke?" He ripped the Velcro open. Inside was not drugs, but an intricate, heavy silver medal with a blue ribbon and a small, crystalline hard drive. Miller frowned. He held up the medal. It had the seal of the United States Congress on it. "Oh, what is this? Fake military gear? Stolen valor?" He tossed the medal carelessly onto the metal table. It clattered loudly. Then he held up the drive. "And this? Illegal movies." "That hard drive contains classified data regarding national aviation infrastructure," Jenna said. "It is encrypted and biometric locked. If you attempt to plug that in or tamper with it, you will commit a federal felony." Miller rolled his eyes. "You are full of it." He turned to the crowd, holding up the drive like a trophy. "See this, folks? This is what happens when you try to smuggle tech." Then he did the unthinkable. He dropped the drive. It hit the hard linoleum floor with a sickening crack. The plastic casing splintered. The terminal went silent. Even the babies seemed to stop crying. Jenna looked down at the broken drive. It was her backup, thankfully, but the disrespect was absolute. The line had been crossed. The bridge was burned. She looked up at Miller. Her eyes were cold, hard flint. "You just destroyed property of the United States government," she said softly. "I destroyed a piece of junk from a liar," Miller shot back. "Now pick up your trash and get out of my terminal. You're not flying today. I'm putting you on the no-fly list for uncooperative behavior." "You're putting me on the no-fly list?" Jenna asked, reaching into her pocket. "Hands where I can see them," Miller shouted, reaching for his taser. "Drop the weapon." "It's a phone, you idiot," Jenna said, pulling out the pink smartphone. "Put it away. No calls in the screening area." "I'm not calling my lawyer," Jenna said, tapping the screen. She didn't dial a number. She opened a secure app that required a retinal scan. "And I'm not calling the police." "Who are you calling, then?" "Your mummy," Miller mocked. Jenna held the phone to her ear. The line connected instantly. There was no ringing, just a sharp click. "Director Reynolds," Jenna said into the phone, her eyes locked on Miller's terrified face. "This is Sterling. Clearance code Alpha 9 Zulu. I am at JFK Terminal 4, Checkpoint B. I am declaring a code red security breach caused by TSA personnel. Shut it down. Shut it all down." Miller laughed nervously. "Director Reynolds?" "Yeah, right." Suddenly, the red emergency lights on the ceiling began to spin. A deafening siren, the specific, terrifying tone of a DHS lockdown, blared through the speakers. "Whoop whoop! Security breach! Terminal lockdown initiated! No one leaves!" The heavy steel shutters over the terminal windows began to descend. The baggage belts stopped moving. The flight information screens all turned black, displaying a single message in red text: "Security audit in progress." Miller's radio crackled to life. It was his direct supervisor, but the voice wasn't calm. It was screaming. "Miller, what did you do? We just got an override command from the Pentagon. Who is in your lane?" Jenna lowered her phone. She stepped closer to the glass barrier, looking Miller dead in the eye. "I told you," she whispered. "I'm the one who checks the checkers." The sound of a terminal lockdown is not something you forget. It isn't just a siren. It is a physical weight, the massive blast doors that separated the sterile area from the check-in counters slammed shut with the force of a guillotine. The hum of the X-ray machines died. The conveyor belts halted, leaving luggage stranded like shipwrecks. Officer Greg Miller stood frozen, his hand hovering over his taser, his face a mask of confusion and rapidly dawning horror. He looked at the red strobe lights spinning above. "What did you do?" Miller shouted over the siren, his voice cracking. "Turn it off! You hacked the system!" "I didn't hack anything," Dr. Jenna Sterling replied, her voice calm amidst the pandemonium. She placed her phone back in her pocket. "I initiated a code red protocol. It's a standard response to a compromised checkpoint. And right now, Officer Miller, you are the compromise." "Compromised? I'm the law here," Miller yelled. He grabbed his radio. "Dispatch! We have a cyber terrorist in lane 5. Send backup. I am moving to neutralize." He unholstered his taser. "Don't!" Officer Davis pleaded, stepping forward. "Greg, look at her. Look at how she's standing. She's not a terrorist. Shut up, Davis. She shut down the airport." Miller raised the taser, aiming the red laser dot at Jenna's chest. "Get on your knees, now, or I will light you up." Jenna didn't flinch. She didn't kneel. She stood with her feet shoulder-width apart, her hands clearly visible but relaxed. She looked at the red dot on her MIT hoodie and sighed. "If you fire that weapon, Miller," she said, her voice projected clearly, "you will be discharged, prosecuted, and imprisoned for assaulting a federal officer. And that's the best-case scenario. I said get down." Miller screamed, his finger tightening on the trigger. Suddenly the glass doors to the far left of the checkpoint shattered inward. "Federal agents, drop it!" 6 men in heavy tactical gear, emblazoned with Homeland Security, swarmed the checkpoint. They moved with a speed and violence that made the TSA officers look like mall cops. They didn't aim at the passengers. They aimed directly at the checkpoint podium. Miller grinned, relief washing over him. "Finally, over here! She's the threat! She's—" "Drop the weapon, Miller!" the lead agent roared. Miller blinked. "What? Drop it or we shoot! Miller's taser clattered to the floor. He raised his hands, his mouth gaping open like a fish out of water. I'm the officer. She's the one who... 2 agents tackled Miller, slamming him face first into the cold linoleum. They zip-tied his hands behind his back with practiced efficiency. Another agent moved toward Jenna, but he didn't tackle her. He stopped 3 feet away and saluted. "Dr. Sterling," the agent said, "we secured the perimeter as per your distress signal. Are you injured?" "I'm fine, Agent Graves," Jenna said, nodding to the man. "But my luggage has been tampered with, and classified hardware has been destroyed." The crowd of passengers was dead silent. Hundreds of people were watching, phones recording every second. From the hallway leading to the administrative offices, a short, balding man in an ill-fitting suit came running. He was sweating profusely, his face the color of ash. It was Thomas Holloway, the Federal Security Director for JFK, the man technically in charge of everyone in this room. "What is happening?" Holloway wheezed as he reached the checkpoint. "Why is my airport shut down? Why are DHS agents arresting my lead supervisor?" He looked around wildly until his eyes landed on Jenna. He squinted, trying to place the woman in the hoodie. Then recognition hit him like a physical blow. His knees actually buckled. Dr. Sterling," Holloway squeaked. "Hello, Thomas," Jenna said pleasantly. "It's been a while. Since the Geneva Convention on Air Safety, I believe." Yes, ma'am," Holloway stammered. He wiped sweat from his forehead. "I didn't know you were... we weren't expecting a visit. If I had known, I would have prepared a detail." "I wasn't visiting, Thomas. I was going home to see my husband," Jenna said, gesturing to the floor where Miller lay groaning. "But apparently your lead officer Miller felt that my hoodie was a threat to national security. He also felt the need to destroy a level 5 encrypted hard drive because he didn't like my tone." Holloway looked down at Miller, then at the shattered hard drive pieces on the floor. He looked back at Jenna, whose expression was unforgiving. "Get him up," Holloway barked at the agents holding Miller. They hauled Miller to his feet. He had a cut on his lip and looked dazed. "Director Holloway," Miller gasped. "Sir, you know me. I'm a good officer. This woman, she's crazy. She provoked me. She refused to follow orders." "Quiet, Miller," Holloway shouted. "Do you have any idea who this is? This is Dr. Jenna Sterling. She wrote the manual you were supposed to read during training. She advises the Secretary of Homeland Security. She has a higher clearance than I do." Miller's eyes went wide. He looked at the woman in the yoga pants, the woman he had called a mule, the woman he had mocked. She's a Fed?" Miller whispered. "No," Jenna corrected him, stepping closer. "I'm the person the Feds call when they don't know what to do. And right now, Officer Miller, I have a lot of questions about how you run this lane." "Director Holloway," Jenna said, her voice shifting into professional gear. "I want this checkpoint sealed. No one leaves. We are conducting an immediate field audit." "Now?" Holloway asked. "But the passengers? The flights?" "The airport is already shut down, Thomas," Jenna said coldly. "We might as well make use of the time. Pull the tapes. Lane 5 audio and video. Now!" Holloway scrambled to a computer terminal. He typed in his override codes. Within seconds, the large monitors above the checkpoint, usually used to show wait times, flickered and changed. They began displaying the security feed from the last 10 minutes. It was projected for everyone to see. The passengers in the line watched like it was a movie. On the screen, they saw Miller looming over Jenna. They saw him sneer. They heard the audio, crisp and clear. "That looks oversized. Does that even fit in the sizer? I decide what fits. Where'd you get it? Swap meet?" The crowd began to murmur angrily. Seeing it replayed made it look even worse. It was bullying, plain and simple. Then came the moment of destruction. The screen showed Miller holding the drive, mocking her, and then deliberately letting it drop. The crack echoed through the speakers. Miller, still in zip ties, refused to look at the screen. He stared at his shoes, his face burning red. Explain this, Jenna said to Miller. Standard Operating Procedure Section 7, Paragraph 2. If an officer suspects contraband, they must call a supervisor and swab the item. At what point does the procedure say, mock the passenger and smash their property? I slipped, Miller lied. It was an accident. An accident? Jenna raised an eyebrow. Agent Graves, please access Officer Miller's disciplinary file. Authorize with my code. Agent Graves pulled out a tablet. Accessing. Done. Jenna took the tablet. She scrolled for a moment, her face tightening. Interesting, she murmured. This isn't the first accident, is it, Greg? She turned to the crowd, addressing them as much as Holloway. 3 months ago, Jenna read aloud, a young musician traveling to Nashville. You claimed his violin case was suspicious. You forced him to check it. It arrived in Nashville in pieces. No compensation. A woman in the crowd gasped. 6 months ago, she continued, an elderly woman from Jamaica. You claimed her insulin medication wasn't labeled correctly. You threw it in the trash. She had to be hospitalized upon landing in Miami. That was protocol, Miller shouted, finding a shred of defiance. The liquids rule! The medication was 3.4 ounces, Jenna corrected. Perfectly legal. You just didn't like her accent. Jenna handed the tablet back to Graves and turned to Holloway. Thomas, you have a predator working your lines. He targets those he thinks are weak, those he thinks can't fight back. He creates friction to feed his own ego. She walked up to Miller. She was half his size, but she seemed to tower over him. You thought I was weak because I wasn't wearing a suit, she said softly. You thought I was sass because I knew my rights. You judged me based on your own prejudices, and you let that prejudice compromise the security of this airport. I was doing my job, Miller spat, though his voice wavered. I keep these people safe. No, Jenna said. You scare these people, and scared passengers don't report threats. They just try to survive you. You are a security risk, Miller. She turned to Holloway. I want a full audit of every seizure Miller has made in the last 2 years. I want to know where the confiscated items went, because I have a feeling the trash isn't the only place things ended up. Miller went pale. This was the twist he hadn't seen coming. It wasn't just about attitude anymore. It was about theft. Officer Davis, the young officer who had tried to help earlier, raised his hand hesitantly. Director? Davis said, his voice trembling. What is it, Davis? Holloway snapped. I can tell you where the items go, Davis said, avoiding Miller's gaze. Greg, Officer Miller, he has a locker in the break room. He calls it his store. Miller lunged at Davis, screaming, You rat! I'll kill you! The DHS agents yanked Miller back hard, slamming him into a support pillar. Jenna looked at Holloway. Open the locker, Thomas. Holloway nodded to 2 agents. They ran towards the staff break room. This is getting better and better, Jenna said, watching Miller struggle. You didn't just break my drive, Miller. You broke your oath, and now you're going to pay for every single violin, every bottle of medicine, and every moment of fear you inflicted on people who just wanted to go home. She turned to the crowd of passengers, who were now filming with fervor. I apologize for the delay, she announced, but I promise you, when this lane reopens, it will be the safest, most respectful lane in America. The crowd erupted into applause. Someone shouted, Thank you! But Miller wasn't done. He looked at Jenna with pure venom. You think you won? He hissed. I'm union. You can't fire me without a hearing. I'll be back on this line in a week, and I'll sue you for everything you've got. Jenna smiled. It was a dangerous smile. Oh, Greg, she said, you're not being fired by the TSA. You're being detained by Homeland Security under the Patriot Act for interference with federal infrastructure and theft of government property. There are no unions where you're going. Just then, the agents returned from the break room. They were carrying a large plastic bin. It was overflowing. Watches, iPads, jewelry, and expensive perfumes. and right on top, sitting mockingly on a pile of stolen cash, was a child's stuffed bear, likely taken from a toddler who was told it was prohibited. The crowd gasped in collective disgust. Jenna looked at the bin, then at Miller. "Book him," she said. The arrest of Greg Miller was not a quiet affair. As DHS agents marched him out of the terminal, handcuffed and stripped of his badge, the applause from the line was sporadic, but genuine. However, the atmosphere remained heavy. The airport was still in lockdown, and thousands of people were stranded in a state of anxious limbo. Dr. Jenna Sterling stood amidst the wreckage of Lane 5. Her clothes were disheveled, her custom bag was scratched, and her classified drive was in shards. Director Holloway approached her, wringing his hands. He looked like a man who knew his pension was evaporating. "Dr. Sterling," Holloway stammered, I have authorized the reopening of the other lanes. We are trying to get passengers moving. But regarding this incident..." "It's not an incident, Thomas. It's a systemic failure," Jenna said, picking up the pieces of her hard drive and placing them into an evidence bag provided by Agent Graves. Miller wasn't working alone. You don't hoard a locker full of stolen electronics without people looking the other way. She turned her gaze to the other TSA officers, standing by the X-ray machines. Most of them were staring at the floor, terrified. They had all seen Miller steal. They had all stayed silent. Complicity was a heavy coat to wear. "Officer Davis," Jenna called out. The young officer who had tried to de-escalate the situation jumped. "Yes, ma'am." "You tried to stop him," Jenna said. "You were the only one who remembered that your job is to screen passengers, not intimidate them. You also gave up the location of the stolen goods. I didn't want anyone to get hurt," Davis said quietly. "Director Holloway," Jenna said, not looking away from Davis. "Effective immediately, Officer Davis is the acting supervisor of this checkpoint. If anyone gives him trouble, they answer to me." Holloway blinked. "But he's a junior officer. He hasn't completed the L3 management course." "Then waive it," Jenna snapped. "Character outrank certification. Do it, or I keep the airport closed and call the secretary." "Done," Holloway said quickly. "Congratulations, Supervisor Davis." Davis looked stunned. Jenna offered him a small, tired smile. "Don't let the power go to your head, Davis. Treat people like human beings." "I will, ma'am. Thank you." Jenna turned back to Holloway. "Now get me a secure courier for this debris," she gestured to the hard drive, "and get me to my gate. I have a flight to catch, and I'm already late." "Of course. We'll escort you. VIP transport," Holloway promised. As Jenna gathered her repacked bag, now missing the stolen dignity but retaining her essentials, she noticed a woman standing near the barrier. She was dressed in an expensive Chanel suit, holding a toy poodle in a carrier. Her face was pinched with impatience. This was Mrs. Beatrice Gable, a socialite who had been loudly complaining about the delay the entire time Miller was harassing Jenna. As Jenna passed her, flanked by armed federal agents, Beatrice scoffed loudly. "Finally," Beatrice muttered to her husband, "all this drama over a hoodie. Some people just crave attention. Now we're going to miss our pre-flight champagne." Jenna stopped. She turned slowly to face the woman. "Excuse me?" Jenna asked. "I said it's about time," Beatrice said, flipping her hair. "You provoked that man. You should have just done what you were told. You shut down the whole terminal because you have an ego. Selfish." Holloway gasped. "Ma'am, please." Jenna raised a hand to silence Holloway. She looked at Beatrice with a mix of pity and amusement. "I shut down the terminal because that man was stealing from people like you," Jenna said calmly. "But don't worry. I'm sure the champagne in economy is just as cold." Beatrice laughed. "Economy? Honey, I'm in Delta 1. Seat 1C. I don't fly in the back." "Is that so?" Jenna smiled. "Well, have a safe flight, Mrs. Gable." Jenna turned and walked away, the agents parting the sea of people for her. She didn't say another word, but she tapped a quick message to her assistant on her pink phone. Target, Beatrice Gable. Flight 402, check ticket status. Flag for seat reassignment due to operational necessity. Downgrade to last row. Karma, Jenna decided, didn't always have to be federal. Sometimes it could just be petty. The walk from the chaotic security checkpoint to Gate B32 felt less like a walk through an airport and more like a procession. The whispers followed Dr. Jenna Sterling. News in an airport travels faster than a Boeing 747. By the time she reached the moving walkways, the TSA agents at other checkpoints were already standing straighter, double-checking their uniforms, terrified that the secret auditor might come their way next. Jenna didn't look at them. She was exhausted. The adrenaline that had sustained her during the confrontation with Miller was fading, replaced by the dull ache of stress. She adjusted the strap of her Tanner Kroll bag. The leather scuffed, the zipper strained, a silent casualty of the morning's battle. When she arrived at Gate B32, the scene was tense. The flight to London was already delayed by 45 minutes due to the security breach she had initiated. Hundreds of passengers were crowded around the podium, anxious and irritable. However, as soon as the lead gate agent, a sharp woman named Jennifer, with a tight bun and a stressed smile, saw Jenna approaching, her demeanor changed instantly. Jennifer stepped out from behind the podium, bypassing a line of 3 angry businessmen. "Dr. Sterling?" Jennifer asked, her voice hushed but respectful. Director Holloway radioed ahead. We want to apologize for what happened at the checkpoint. It's inexcusable." "It's over now, Jennifer," Jenna said softly, handing over her boarding pass. "I just want to get home. Of course, we've pre-boarded the families, but we held the Delta 1 lane open for you. The captain is personally overseeing the pre-flight checks, but he asked to be notified the second you boarded." Jenna nodded. As she moved towards the scanner, she heard a shrill, familiar voice cutting through the hum of the terminal. "This is absolutely ridiculous. Do you know how much I spend with this airline? I am a Diamond Medallion member. I demand to board now." It was Mrs. Beatrice Gable, the socialite who had mocked Jenna at the checkpoint, the woman who had laughed while Miller destroyed federal property. She was standing at the Sky Priority lane, berating a young male attendant. Her poodle carrier was slung over her shoulder, and she looked like she was ready to bite someone. Jenna paused. She looked at Jennifer. "Is Mrs. Gable on this flight?" Jenna asked quietly. Jennifer grimaced. "Unfortunately, yes. Seat 1C. She's been screaming at my staff for 20 minutes about the lounge being closed during the lockdown." Jenna pulled out her phone. She looked at the email confirmation from her assistant. The request she had made moments ago, flag for seat reassignment due to operational necessity, had been processed by the back-end system. "Check her ticket again, Jennifer," Jenna whispered. "I believe there's been a manifest update." Jennifer looked confused. She typed quickly on her terminal. Her eyes widened. She looked at Jenna, then back at the screen, then at Jenna again. A small conspiratorial smile tugged at the corner of Jennifer's mouth. "I see," Jennifer said. "Operational necessity. Equipment change requiring weight redistribution. It appears Mrs. Gable's seat no longer exists. A tragedy," Jenna deadpanned. "I'll see you on board." Jenna scanned her pass, a satisfying beep, and walked down the jet bridge. The transition from the noisy terminal to the aircraft was jarring. The Delta 1 cabin on the A330 was a haven of cool blue lighting and soft jazz. Flight attendants moved with practiced grace, offering hot towels and champagne. Jenna found seat 1A. It was a private suite with a sliding door. She stowed her battered bag, sat down, and accepted a glass of sparkling water. She closed her eyes, finally letting her guard down. But peace, it seemed, was not on the manifest today. 3 minutes later, the peace was shattered. "What do you mean, error?" Beatrice Gable was on the jet bridge, and she was loud enough to be heard in the cockpit. She stormed onto the plane, clutching a new boarding pass that the gate agent had printed for her just seconds ago. Her face was a mask of incredulous fury. My seat is 1C, Beatrice shrieked at the purser, a tall, elegant woman named Monica. I have reserved 1C for 6 months. Why does this piece of paper say 42E? Ma'am, please lower your voice, Monica said firmly, blocking the aisle. As the agent explained, there was a last-minute aircraft configuration change. The computer automatically reassigned seats based on priority protocols. Priority. I am the priority. Beatrice pushed past Monica. I want to see who is in my seat. I bet you gave it to some upgrade, some credit card, miles, nobody. Beatrice marched into the first-class cabin. She stopped dead in front of seat 1C. Sitting there was not a wealthy businessman. It was a young soldier, a corporal in the army, wearing his fatigues. He looked incredibly uncomfortable. He had clearly been pulled from the back of the plane and given the upgrade moments ago. He held his economy ticket like it was a mistake. You? Beatrice pointed a manicured finger at the soldier. Get up. You're in my seat. The soldier blinked. Ma'am? The lady at the gate said. I don't care what she said. Look at you. You can't afford this seat. I paid $6,000. Get your bag and move. The cabin fell dead silent. Several passengers in the suites nearby lowered their noise-cancelling headphones. Mrs. Gable, Monica the purser, stepped in, her voice losing its customer service sweetness. You are disturbing the other passengers. This gentleman is a member of the United States Armed Forces, and he is sitting where he was assigned. You need to take your seat in the main cabin, or you will be escorted off this aircraft. Main cabin? Beatrice laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. I don't do main cabin. I don't sit near the toilets. I don't sit with the commoners. She scanned the cabin, looking for support. Can you believe this? She asked a man in 1D. He ignored her. Then her eyes landed on seat 1A. Dr. Jenna Sterling was sipping her water, reading The Economist. Beatrice's eyes bulged. The recognition was instant. It's you, Beatrice breathed. The shock turned rapidly to venom. You did this! I saw you talking to the agent at the gate. You petty, vindictive little... Mrs. Gable, Jenna said, not looking up from her magazine. You are blocking the aisle. Don't you ignore me, Beatrice screamed, stepping closer to Jenna's suite. Who do you think you are? You ruin my morning. You make me stand in line like cattle, and now you steal my seat. I will have your job. I will sue you. I know the CEO of this airline. I doubt that, Jenna replied calmly, turning a page, because if you knew the CEO, you wouldn't know that he has a zero-tolerance policy for abusing flight crews. I am not abusing anyone. I am a victim here, Beatrice yelled, slamming her hand onto the wall of Jenna's suite. That was the mistake. The cockpit door flew open with a mechanical hiss. Captain Reynolds stepped out. He was a man of imposing stature, with silver hair and the 4 gold stripes of authority on his shoulders. He didn't look like a customer service representative. He looked like the commander of a vessel. He stared at Beatrice's hand, which was still resting aggressively on Jenna's suite wall. Step back, Captain Reynolds ordered. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of federal law. Beatrice flinched and pulled her hand back. Captain, thank God. These people are treating me like... I said step back, Reynolds repeated. He moved into the aisle, placing himself physically between Beatrice and Jenna. He turned his back on Beatrice completely, disregarding her presence, and looked down at Jenna. His expression softened into genuine warmth. Dr. Sterling? The captain asked. Jenna finally looked up, removing her reading glasses. Captain Reynolds, I apologize for the commotion. No apology necessary, Reynolds said. He extended his hand. I just received the briefing from the tower. They told us about the audit. They told us you took down Miller. Jenna shook his hand. He was a liability, Captain. He was a bully, Reynolds corrected. My co-pilot's wife came through that checkpoint yesterday. He made her dump out her breast milk because the bottle was opaque. She was in tears. The captain paused, holding on to Jenna's hand for a second longer than usual. "You did a service for everyone who flies. It's an honor to have you on board my ship." Beatrice stood there, her mouth gaping open like a fish on a dock. The realization was washing over her, cold and absolute. The woman she had mocked wasn't just a passenger. She wasn't just a VIP. She was a hero to the crew. "Captain," Beatrice squeaked. She stole my seat." Captain Reynolds turned slowly to face Beatrice. He looked her up and down, from her expensive blowout to her trembling hands. "Mrs. Gable," Reynolds said, his voice dropping to a dangerous baritone. "The seat assignment is not theft. It is the prerogative of the airline. And right now, you are interfering with a flight crew and harassing a high-level federal asset." I didn't know," Beatrice stammered. "Ignorance is not an excuse for behavior," Reynolds said. "Now you have a choice. You can take your assigned seat in 42E, which I believe is a middle seat, or you can step off this plane and explain to the federal marshals why you delayed an international flight." He pointed toward the open aircraft door. 2 heavy-set officers were visible on the jet bridge, watching the scene with interest. Beatrice looked at the marshals. She looked at the soldier in her old seat, who was trying to make himself invisible. She looked at the other first-class passengers, who were now openly staring at her with disdain. And finally, she looked at Jenna. Jenna met her gaze. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just raised her glass of water in a silent, mocking toast. Beatrice's face crumpled. The fight left her body, replaced by pure, crushing humiliation. "I'll take the seat," she whispered. "Good choice," the captain said. "Monica, escort Mrs. Gable to the rear. Ensure her bag is checked if there is no overhead space." "With pleasure, Captain," Monica said. The walk of shame that followed was excruciating. Beatrice had to walk the entire length of the aircraft. She had to walk past the lie-flat suites where people sipped champagne. She had to walk through the Comfort Plus section where passengers whispered and pointed, recognizing her from the viral videos already circulating on TikTok. She walked past the galleys, the smell of warming meals taunting her. She reached the very last row of the plane, row 42. It was right against the rear lavatories. The seats did not recline. The overhead bins were full. "I'll have to gate-check your carry-on, Mrs. Gable," Monica said cheerfully, taking the expensive bag. "You can pick it up at baggage claim in London. Hopefully it doesn't get scratched." 21. Beatrice squeezed into the middle seat, sandwiched between a large man eating a tuna sandwich and a crying teenager. She pulled her poodle carrier onto her lap, burying her face in the mesh. Back in seat 1A, the atmosphere had returned to tranquility. "We'll be pushing back in 2 minutes, Dr. Sterling," the captain said. "If you need anything at all, you'll let Monica know." "Thank you, Captain. Just a smooth ride," Jenna smiled. As the captain returned to the cockpit and the fasten seatbelt sign chimed, Jenna watched the tarmac outside. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the wings. She saw a police cruiser pulling away from the terminal building below. In the back seat, she could just make out the silhouette of a man with his head in his hands. Greg Miller. Jenna reached into her pocket and turned off her phone. But just before the screen went black, a notification popped up from a news app. "Breaking JFK Terminal 4. Manager arrested in massive security corruption scandal. Thousands of stolen items recovered." She swiped the notification away. The phone went dark. The engines roared to life, a deep, powerful thrum that vibrated through the floor. The plane began to taxi, leaving the drama, the noise, and the karma on the ground. Jenna closed her eyes and reclined her seat. The audit was complete. 6 months after the JFK shutdown, as the media had come to call it, the world had largely moved on to the next viral scandal. But for those involved in the events of Lane 5, life had been irrevocably altered. Dr. Jenna Sterling stood in her garden in the suburbs of London, the morning mist clinging to the rose bushes. Her phone buzzed on the stone table beside her tea. It was an encrypted briefing from her colleagues in DC. She swiped through the files, a small, grim smile of satisfaction playing on her lips. The fallout had been a localized earthquake. Greg Miller was no longer a name spoken in the halls of JFK unless it was used as a cautionary tale. The investigation into his store in the break room had uncovered a mountain of evidence. He hadn't just been a bully. He had been the ringleader of a small, greedy syndicate. They had systematically targeted passengers who looked vulnerable, non-native English speakers, elderly travelers, and people like Jenna, whom they assumed wouldn't have the resources to fight back. Miller's union protection had evaporated the moment the FBI stepped in. Because he had destroyed Gina's government-encrypted hard drive, he was charged under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act and the Patriot Act. He wasn't just facing a firing, he was facing a federal sentence. Last she heard, Miller had accepted a plea deal, 5 years in a federal correctional institution and a lifetime ban from any job involving security or public trust. He was currently trading his TSA blues for prison orange. As for Director Thomas Holloway, his career had ended in a forced retirement, exactly 3 days after the incident. The audit Jenna initiated revealed that Holloway hadn't been stealing, but he had been willfully blind. He had prioritized efficiency numbers over officer conduct. He now lived in Florida, largely avoided by his former colleagues. His reputation in the aviation world scorched beyond repair. Jenna scrolled further down the report to a name that made her chuckle: Beatrice Gable. Beatrice hadn't faced jail time, but the court of public opinion had been far less merciful than a judge. The video of her screaming at the soldier and her subsequent walk of shame to the back of the plane had gone globally viral. It had been dubbed the first-class Karen on every major social media platform. The brand Beatrice represented, a high-end luxury skincare line, had severed ties with her within 48 hours to protect their image. Her social circle in the Hamptons had closed ranks and shut her out. Apparently being a bully to the troops was the one thing her elite friends couldn't overlook. Her husband had filed for divorce 3 months later, citing irreconcilable differences and a desire to distance himself from the public PR nightmare. Beatrice was last spotted by a tabloid in a rental apartment in New Jersey, far from the penthouses of Manhattan, still trying to sue the airline for her traumatic experience in seat 42. No lawyer would take the case. Then there was Officer Davis. Jenna's eyes softened as she read the final slide of the report. Davis had thrived. Under his leadership, Terminal 4's Lane 5 had become the highest-rated security checkpoint in the country for both efficiency and passenger satisfaction. He had implemented a humanity-first training module that was now being piloted in 3 other major hubs. He wasn't just a supervisor anymore. He was being fast-tracked for a regional director position. He still sent Jenna a holiday card every year, thanking her for seeing him when he felt invisible. Gina set the phone down then and took a sip of her tea. She looked at her leather duffel bag sitting by the door, now professionally repaired, its scars barely visible. In her world, security was often thought of as a series of walls, scanners, and locks, but Jenna knew better. Real security was built on integrity. It was built on the idea that the person with the badge was there to protect the person without one, not to diminish them. She checked her watch. She had a flight to catch to Geneva for a keynote at the International Air Transport Association. This time she wasn't wearing a hoodie. She was wearing a tailored charcoal suit and heels that clicked with authority on the hardwood floor. As she walked toward her car, she felt no fear of the airport. She knew the system was better today than it was 6 months ago. And she knew that somewhere, in some terminal, there was likely another Miller who thought they could get away with a power trip. She almost hoped she ran into him. After all, the silent auditor was always traveling. They say power reveals a person's true character, and for Officer Greg Miller, it revealed a bully. But he forgot one simple rule of the universe. You never know who is standing in front of you. Dr. Jenna Sterling didn't just stand up for herself. She stood up for every passenger who has ever felt powerless in an airport line. This story is a reminder that while karma might take its time, when it finally arrives, it packs a heavy suitcase. If you enjoyed seeing a bully get exactly what he deserved, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories of justice and instant karma. Have you ever had a nightmare experience at airport security? Tell us your story in the comments below. We read every single one. Share this video with someone who needs to see that the good guys and girls sometimes win the whole game. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.